It's the first week of May, and it turns out this war hates my sleep schedule. Why? Major General Ulysses S. Grant has decided to strike the rebels non-stop, which has the side effect of breaking this reporter. But I'm not fueled by sleep, but by the sincere hope that this will actually work. Major General Frederick Steele is falling back after calling off the Camden campaign. He currently is stuck trying to move the heavy supply wagons and cannons across Jenkins Ferry. When opposing General Edmund Kirby Smith arrives, this is going to be contested. The rearguard of Union column throws up breastworks, while my beloved Frederick Salomon should be commanding this force is instead led by Brigadier General Samuel Rice. The rebel army of Arkansas under Traitor to Missouri Major General Sterling Price begins to dismount its cavalry and skirmish with Rice. Their advance is through mud with no cover against trenches. Unsurprisingly, the Confederate charge fails. Two infantry brigades are then sent to follow the cavalry. Through the gunpowder smoke they march. A volley cuts them down. Secessionist artillery is brought up but gets stuck in the swamp. Seeing the exposed heavy guns, the 2nd Kansas Colored Infantry and a fellow Iowa regiment dash forth and capture the battery. Price has suffered greatly. Two brigades and the cavalry pushed back. Calls upon Major General Walker and his famed Texas Division, which is pushed through the dark water, which they paint red with their own blood. Every single brigade commander was wounded, 2 mortally, though Samuel Rice is also struck mortally by a random shot. With his life, he has bought enough time for the supply train and won the battle. With him, 700 bluecoats become casualties, but able to inflict 1,000. As the Confederates pursue the fleeing Federals, they see their fallen brethren, and realize the 2nd Kansas took revenge and killed wounded rebels, which I also wholeheartedly condemn. No defenseless man should be harmed. The 3rd Little Rock sees bluecoats return to their camp, once again populated by irate veterans. Jenkins Ferry is the final battle of Camden campaign. Steele lost until around 2,500 men, with 10 cannons, 635 wagons, 2,500 mules, horses, small arms, muskets, pots, pans, etc. The rebels 1,500 and 3 cannons. The Red River and Camden operations have made complete mistakes. Now for rebel President Jefferson Davis. He writes once again to General Leonidas Polk.
Captured slaves should be returned to their masters on proof and payment of charges.
After sending this communication, personal tragedy. His 5-year-old son Joe Davis is killed playing on the roof of the Confederate White House. He falls from the veranda. It's the roofed area outside the house on the ground level. I also had to look it up. Both Davis and Lincoln have lost kids in their residency as executive. I'm sure there's a joke somewhere here, but I have no idea what it is. Command change time, where I give out names that are meaningless with respect to commands which are inconsequential. The Department of the South, which covers the Confederate coastal regions, has been under the leadership of Major General Quincy A. Gilmore, who has overseen the climactic Battle of Fort Wagner, initiated the failed Florida campaign. Truly a wonderful resume. He is replaced by Brigadier General John P. Hatch. Hatch led the Iron Brigade, not the famous Black Hats, but the Eastern Iron Brigade. His resume has a Medal of Honor for gallantry and effective raids. A good choice overall. 2nd of May has a grand opening in Richmond. The first session of the 2nd Confederate Congress commences with a speech from the still mourning President Davis.
The unjust war commenced against us in violation of the rights of the states and in usurpation of power not delegated to the government of the United States is still characterized by the barbarism with which it has heretofore been conducted by the enemy. Aged men, helpless women, and children appeal in vain to the humanity which should be inspired by their condition for immunity from arrest, incarceration, or banishment from their homes. Plunder and devastation of the property of non-combatants, destruction of private dwellings, and even of edifices devoted to the worship of God. Expeditions organized for the sole purpose of sacking cities, of consigning them to the flames, killing the unarmed inhabitants, and inflicting horrible outrages on women and children, are some of the constantly recurring atrocities of the invader.
He believes no outside foreign state will save the rebellion, but hopes that the armies will turn around their fortunes. The speech as a whole seems to me to be a failed attempt at optimism. Before the war, Davis was a skilled orator, but it seems the stressors of the conflict and the loss of his son have taken a toll on his voice. Now for the forgotten war. Newspapers focused on the rebellious strife. no longer reports on the ongoing Apache crisis. For the 4th has Lieutenant Stevens with his company of the 5th California Volunteer Infantry engaged with a Native American war band, which they say ambushed the California marching column. Stevens suffers 5 wounded and 1 missing and claims the Indian losses were 10 killed and 20 wounded. Unbelievable! As in, I don't believe this record. Just for passing reference, the Wade-Davis bill is passed by the House 73-59. It's a controversial bill that has separated the Republican Party, and I have no time for crap campaign time. Before we get to Grant, let us look to my favorite punching bag, Major General Nathaniel. Honestly, his record is quite awful. If it wasn't for his political pull, he would have been fired a long time ago. Banks has fallen all the way back to Alexandria, Louisiana, after shitting the bed in his Red River campaign. Oh, and for the Wikipedia editors who added to the Red River campaign pages after I did my coverage, go to hell. You know Wikipedia is my only source. Rebel General Richard Taylor won't give up and has pursued him to the fortified town. When I mean fortified, don't think of some fences and rail line. Think of the walls of Troy. The Confederates skirmish consistently but make no progress. Now for the moment we have been waiting for. General Lee met his Waterloo at Gettysburg about a year ago. Now it's time for the Army of the Potomac to show its strength. Under the meticulous leadership of General Meade and the aggressive command of General Ulysses S. Grant. Midnight, May 3rd, the federal camp is roused to its feet. The time has begun for the march on Lee. They will cross over force to strike on the Army of Northern Virginia's flanks. The combination of surprise and numbers, then rebellion is within grasp. By the 4th of May, the Union had fully crossed the Rapidan River and reached Chancellorsville, where they are confronted by the remains of their fallen friends, who stare back through their empty eye sockets. This position is terrible. New numbers are constrained by the force, their artillery useless, and Lee knows this. The Army of Northern Virginia spotted the long blue coat columns. Instantly the call goes out for the concentration of forces. General Ewell marches from Mine Run, General Hill from Orange Courthouse. But the Great Longstreet is quite a distance away at Gordonsville. It tells Lee he should arrive by midday on the 5th. Until then, Lee will be outnumbered 3-1. When the 5th arrived, Grant was thrilled. He has 100,000 men. It's time to bring the battle to Lee. When it's either simple brilliance or dangerously straightforward, he has Hancock take the 2nd Corps to Todd's Tavern, the 5th Corps under Warren hold the right flank. Sedgwick's 6th Corps will move to the right of Warren, and the 9th Corps under General Burnside acts as reserve. Now while Hancock, Warren, and Sedgwick belong to the Army of the Potomac and are under Meade, Burnside directly reports to Grant. Army bureaucracy is confusing and complex, for you see, while Burnside was disgraced as a commander, he is still senior to General Meade. So if the 9th Corps was in the Army of the Potomac, Burnside would take command. But no one, including Burnside himself, wants this. So in order to keep with the military code, his command is separate from Meade's. I'm sure this will cause no problems at all. Oh god. Let us return to the wilderness. The simple plan goes astray almost immediately. The Lee division of General Wadsworth slowly crawls towards their objectives, having to cut their own path. Hancock's movements are delayed and Warren's forces exhausted just by movement, making the worst time for reports to come in of rebel forces. Warren doesn't believe it until the trusted Brigadier Griffin adds in his report. A scouting party is sent out and finds the Greycoats are digging in. Here ends the elegant plan as Grant and Meade are forced to deal with their nightmare, a second Chancellorsville, a battle in the wilderness.
If any opportunity presents itself of pitching into a part of Lee's army, do so without giving time for disposition.
Meade attempts to get his line straight, despite Grant telling him earlier to just pitch in, but the General-in-Chief present thinks must be done correct. But also, why was this a surprise? Why didn't Brigadier General Wilson inform him of the Confederate positions? Well, Wilson is too far away, so not only did he fail at his job, he has now exposed the Union line with only a single regiment connecting the infantry to the cavalry. Lieutenant Colonel John Hammond leads the 5th New York Cavalry. He's about to face off against Ambrose P. Hill's corps. His 500 men have repeating rifles, which they use effectively, holding off rebel cavalry and later brigades from Henry Heth's division. They in the end are forced back, but held long enough. Brigadier General George Getty and his division of Sedgwick's corps rush in, saving the Federal line. Wilson's cavalry made their headway unaware of the catastrophe they caused, breaking rebel cavalry brigade under Rosser. But this took its toll on the Federal division, but they are left open to counterattack. The 2nd Cavalry Division under General David Gregg tries to save Wilson, beating Rosser back, but he's counterattacked by General Fitzhugh Lee's division. The Union cavalry is broken and useless, leaving Hancock and Warren exposed. Warren orders Crawford to leave the high ground and join the main Federal line, thus splitting completely his 5th Corps from the 2nd Corps. A similar split was taken advantage of by General Longstreet in the West, winning the Battle of Chickamauga. Can Lee do it? The answer is yes, if he had Longstreet. Without his warhorse, it's a maybe that is too dangerous for any Confederate commander to stomach. Let General Stuart use his cavalry to keep Hancock busy. Let Warren be held at bay by Ewell. Longstreet promised he would be at Lee's side by noon. He can't keep his word. Lee's faith in his subordinates almost costs him his life, as he sets up headquarters close to the Union line, and is almost shot to death until the panicked Blue formation falls back. The Federal headquarters aren't at risk of massacre, but are suffering from the fog of war. Grant is waiting for Burnside to reinforce the Army of the Potomac, and he has grown tired of the 9th Corps, turning his restlessness into micromanagement of Meade. When Warren arrives at HQ, just as confused as Meade, Grant grows irate, watching veterans succumb to fear only expected of raw recruits. The word goes out to just attack. Don't wait for order. Warren and Sedgwick's men are to assault. Time is slipping by, and Grant has had enough. Despite this order, individual brigade commanders are hesitant to blindly advance against veteran, entrenched, and deadly rebels. By 1300 hours, enough men have begrudgingly advanced to start a real battle at Saunders Field. Their fears were well-founded. Griffin, Wadsworth, Wright, and Ricketts watch as their divisions are eaten up by Ewell's corps. The first line of Federals falls apart as the flanks are fired down upon. Coordination disappears and smoke obscures their opponents. The second line is an easier target, with 146 New York Zouaves' unique uniform standing out amongst the gunpowder-clogged field. Rebel Marylander Stewart's brigade charges from their trenches, repulsing the 140th New York by the bayonet, and move against Griffin's flanks. The Union is on a knife's edge, when General Bartlett takes the 3rd Brigade of Griffin's division and charges Rebel Jones' Virginia Brigade, killing Jones and his aide. The Virginians beat the retreat. Bartlett keeps up the advance, unaware he is moving alone, only realizing his mistake when the thunderous roar of muskets strike his flank. The Virginians reform, and soon the Union line is forced to their starting positions. The battle turned to Wadsworth's division. Wadsworth's division has the well of the Iron Brigade, the real one this time, which has done well so far, aiding in the destruction of Jones, taking prisoners, and battle flags, but has moved so far away that when 2 rebel brigades ambush the Black Hats, the Midwesterners have no choice but to fall back. Same story befalls Roy Stone's brigade and General Rice's. Wadsworth's entire division has been defeated. And when Colonel McCandles is sent in to save the flank, he loses an entire regiment. This ends any hope for the Army of the Potomac to carry the day. Instead, they dig in opposite of Ewell and duel at range. This sets the force on fire, turning the battlefield into a burning hellscape, killing the wounded who laid on the field.
Suddenly, to the horror of the living, fire was seen creeping over the ground, fed by dead leaves which were thick. All who could move tried to get beyond the pike, which the fire could not cross. Some were overtaken by the flames.
Ewell has won, holding off 2 corps with his own, capturing men and heavy guns as trophies, and has done what Lee asked him to do. The Union HQ is bewildered and infuriated. Grant watches as Meade argues with Generals Warren and Wright, when Griffin arrives and starts dressing down those two. It takes Meade's personal invention to stop Grant from arresting Griffin. Grant wants to keep up the pressure on Ewell and Hill. Hancock will take care of Hill, and Burnside should be here for Ewell, but since he isn't, the task is instead given to Sedgwick's corps. Wright marches with his men, the 1st Division of the 6th Corps, continually harassed and facing off against delaying fires. His 4 brigades soon find themselves face to face with 3 Gray brigades, one being the infamous Stonewall Brigade. This time around, the rebels suffer defeat. Stonewalls become isolated. Leroy Stafford and his Louisiana troops are ravaged by bullets, one paralyzing Stafford. The reserves of the secessionists are thrown back. General Jubal Early, the famed Confederate commander, has to personally rally the line. Seems like the Confederates can't take the day. All that is left is the 9th Corps. Burnside has arrived and just watches from a hilltop. He doesn't do anything. Seems like the chain of command did cause problems after all. Who could have seen it? The cavalry broken, the 9th Corps no longer receiving communications, the 5th and 6th Corps beaten, that leaves only the 2nd Corps under Hancock, and also General Getty if you remember him. Hancock has been receiving confusing orders all day, until he meets up with Getty when Meade orders Getty to assault the rebels and for Hancock to support. The issue is that Meade believes the entire 2nd Corps is there, when in truth there are only 2 divisions. Getty charges at 1600 hours. Way before Hancock's force can reinforce him, he advances through swamp water, overgrown bushes, and trees that strangle the sunlight, only for his men to be cut down by rebel General Henry Heth's sharpshooters. Major General David Birney and Brigadier General Gershom Mott, the 3rd and 4th Division commanders respectively, run in to support Getty, but are also held at bay. But Heth's men are running low on ammunition, outnumbered 3-1. When Mott's brigades advance, they are jammed together and cut down, but Heth is on his last leg. Luckily for him, he is soon reinforced, giving Hill the hope to take Brock Road, cut the Union in two. Birney tosses in Hayes' brigade, and Hayes himself charges in with his men. A bullet goes through his brain. This holds the line. It becomes clear Hancock needs to do something. Aides beg him for more men. Gibbon's 2nd Division is soon to arrive, and Hancock personally tries to rally Mott's division. This works. Gibbon is able to break a Confederate advance on Brock Road. With the final division under Barlow, he could perhaps stabilize the front or strike where Hill wasn't. But there is a problem. A captured prisoner warns the 2nd Corps that Longstreet is coming to smash the Union left flank. This is confirmed by military intelligence, and Hancock, instead of attacking, wishes to defend himself from the 1st Corps. Lee tries to strengthen Heth's position, worried about the possibility of Grant overtaking it. He calls upon General Wilcox to break off his march to connect Hill and Ewell, instead defending against Hancock. This will cause a gap, but Lee thinks it's worth the risk. When Wilcox reaches Heth, they decide that instead of holding off against the 4 divisions before them with Barlow on the way, to instead charge forward. Alfred Scales and Samuel McGowan lead their brigades forward and also back, as the ranks become shattered with rifle fire. Hancock sees this, knows that Longstreet is coming, and the casualty list is too long. Time to end the day's combat. Grant sees this and believes that Ewell is being weakened to strengthen Hill, so he orders Warren and Sedgwick to restart their assault, for his reserves to strike Hill's left flank. Barlow arrives and, despite Hancock's worries, assaults Wilcox, capturing the North Carolina regiment and smashing the rebel right flank. The 2nd Corps ends their action with a success. General Wadsworth is supposed to lead the assault on A.P. Hill's flank, doing so well but keeping his distance. Causes it to become a mere duel of musketry. The final assault on Ewell also fell apart, the darkness turning organized charges into disparate skirmishing. Weed misreads the situation and tries to get Ewell to attack, but the rebel corps is too exhausted from the day's events. The cold wind of night catalyzes an examination of the battle. Warren is forced to rewrite casualty reports to downplay the mistakes of the army. Sedgwick spends the evening trying to prepare his line for the 6th. Meade does the same, being directed by Grant to plan an assault for 0600 hours tomorrow. Ulysses then rides to Burnside to ensure that there won't be another communication breakdown. An aide is sent and secures a promise from James Longstreet that at 0100 hours on the 6th, his corps will continue their march to Lee, only 10 miles away. Instead, the order goes to strengthen the line. Longstreet will save the day. As for Ewell, he must ensure the pressure is kept up. 2 brigades are to insult the Union line. 2 brigades against the entire 6th Corps. Heth and Wilcox ask Hill to fall back. Hill, bedridden from illness, tells them to hold and rest. Longstreet's coming. Lee smiles as he drifts off to sleep. He might not have another Chancellorsville, but with Longstreet arriving soon, he knows he won't have another Gettysburg. The Army of the Potomac being stuck in the wilderness doesn't completely leave Grant trapped. In Virginia, Major General Benjamin Butler with his Army of the James moves towards Richmond's flanks. He has Quincy Gilmore in the 10th Corps, so that's where Quincy went, and also William Baldry Smith in the 18th Corps. The 5th has the federal force land at Bermuda 100, 33,000 strong. The Department of North Carolina and Southern Virginia is the rebel opponent under General P.G.T. Beauregard and General Pickett. Before moving to the final action this week, the Atlantic Campaign, let's cleanse our palate with North Carolina action, this time naval. I honestly can't remember the last time I covered a naval battle. They used to be way more common. The rebels had the ironclad CSS Albemarle and 2 steamers, the Union 8 gunboats. The 2 sides engaged at a distance, firing their cannons. The USS Saccharis attempts to ram the Albemarle and crashes into it, but this leaves the ship's hull open to 2 rebel fire shots at point-blank range. Next, the USS Miami attempts to strike the rebel vessel with a spark torpedo, but this fails, as does the attempt to catch the rudder. Night falls and the 2 sides fall back, the entire engagement being inconclusive. Major General William Tecumseh Sherman has been given the supreme honor of commanding the military division of the Mississippi and has started his movement. Rebel General Joseph E. Johnston reports on the 2nd.
In the morning of the 2nd May, a close reconnaissance of our outpost at Tunnel Hill was made under the protection of a strong body of infantry, cavalry, and artillery. The beginning of an active campaign is imminent.
He is told by military advisor Braxton Bragg he is deceived. He isn't. Sherman recognizes Johnston as a worthy opponent. By the 5th, he has concentrated all his forces. Johnston has spent 6 months fortifying Rocky Face Ridge. Next week, we will see if those 6 months were well spent. Sickles time. He visits Nashville, where he spends the weekend in Andrew Johnson's company. Some believe that this is to size up Johnson for possibly being Lincoln's vice president in the 1864 election. Sickles denies this and states instead that Lincoln was concerned about Johnson's administration.
Too harsh and not calculated to meet the policy which he believed the proper one.
What exactly happened is unknown, but what is known is that after Sickles' visit, Lincoln started to appreciate Johnson's administration more. That's where the week ends, and what a week it has been. Of course, the main topic of conversation is the wilderness. The Reformed Union Army is stronger than it has ever been, but has seemed to fall into its old ways, literally fighting over the same ground it did just a year ago. Meade and Grant both have their pros, but it seems instead of covering each other's weaknesses, they are fighting against each other's strengths. Not that Lee is doing much better, as his subordinate can't seem to keep his promise. What truly stands out the most to me isn't about either commander, but instead about the brutality of this engagement. It seems as if the wilderness signals a new way of war, one where action is more local, where Napoleonic charges are suicidal, and the lowly private clothed in mud will decide the battle. Hi, it's the entire Civil War Week by Week team here. I just want to say, you might notice we're about to enter May of 1864. And in the past, when, let's just say, events pile on each other, I've taken different moves. For those who have been here for a very long time, they might remember my special report from First Bull Run, or how I broke up the 7 days and released a video each day. Later on, I did events such as singling out battles, most famously at Gettysburg for my feature film-length video. Now, May will see the Overland Campaign and the Atlanta Campaign. I do plan on conducting those weeks normally and regularly. As I'm a college student and not always the most able to keep up with demands, I might have to split them apart, remix. But I do promise that you will see the full month of May, even if I am forced out of those confines. It is not planned. I would like to thank you and see you for the final week of April before I stop sleeping for about 4 weeks.